Hey, everybody, it's Katie and
Matt and
Ryan.
Hey, team. Welcome back. It's February.
wow, time flies when you're having fun.
Time flies when you're going on listing appointments. My goodness, it's been a busy week.
Yes.
Yeah.
So talk to us about rates. Let's jump right into that, Ryan. How are we doing in that department?
Yeah. You know, as all of you know, it's been a very eventful 30 days. So we obviously have a new president in the White House. And so far, President Trump has signed more than 50 executive orders, which is the most in a president's first 100 days in more than 40 years. So there's been a lot of market moving news to digest really over the past month. So I could probably talk for about 2 hours about it, but we want to keep this short and I'll try to summarize everything the best I can. So, you know, last year, as we approached the November 5th election, really, you know, the trend lower in mortgage rates did shift and they went higher to end 2024, which really kind of slowed things down in the market. It really seemed like the market, you know, accurately predicted that Trump was going to win. And the reason that initially that raised rates was that, you know, Trump really heavily discussed tariffs on the campaign trail. And the market was concerned that enacting these would really lead to price increases, which would increase inflation, which, as we always discuss, that does increase rates. But, you know, as tariffs were announced last week and they were really put on pause pretty quickly, the market really started to feel, and at least for now, you know, the tariff talk was more of a negotiation tactic, really. And so the concern of the impact on tariffs has really subsided since then. And we've really seen rates starting to trend lower to start the year. So it's been a great start so far. And last month as well, you know, the Federal Reserve, they did meet and confirmed that they're pausing rate cuts. But really, you know, they felt inflation's kind of holding steady. You know, it's not dropping enough. And they felt like the job market is strong. But the next few months will be really important because many feel we're going to start seeing some weakness in the jobs market. And some lower shelter costs is going to drop inflation. So, you know, if this in fact does happen, it would pressure the Fed to go back to cutting rates, which we'll continue to see mortgage rates drop. And to add to this, you know, there's a new Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, and he did say yesterday, and it really helped mortgage rates after his announcement, that he's focusing on lowering long-term rates more than really looking at the Fed. And that actually, like the 10-year Treasury, when that goes down, mortgage rates go down with it. So that was positive news. And we did see things shift lower after his talk. So really, all in all, positive news for mortgage rates to start the year. And we are back on that trend lower. And it's really pointing to things continuing that trend with everything we're seeing.
Thankfully, because I know that there are a lot of people out there that are kind of waiting for this to happen. They're, you know, or needing this to happen. I've also noticed that there are some buyers that, like Matt has been saying over the last couple of months, that have just come to terms with the fact that this is where rates are.
Yeah.
Have you noticed any conversations like that?
Yeah, we're seeing that quite a bit. You know, it's always been a wait and see for a while as rates jumped. A lot of people thought home prices would drop as well. You know, buying would slow down, but that didn't happen as we've been talking about, you know, for the past couple of years. You know, home prices have still been going up and people are still buying right now. So it just seems like people are just ready to kind of get off the fence and start moving. You know, a lot of them, you know, they do want to upgrade their house. They need an extra bedroom, more backyard. And they're like, okay, we're obviously not going to see rates in the 2s or 3s, you know, but we're going to have to be happy with where rates are at right now and know that we could refinance as they continue to drop. And let's just get moving. That's kind of the discussions that we're starting to see.
Are you seeing an increase in applications since beginning of January, mid-January?
We have, you know, it was definitely slow during the holidays, which is pretty typical. But we've really starting to see things picking up, you know, after the holidays. And pending home sales that we were just seeing has picked up, even though sold homes in January, I know they were down from 2024. Right. But we do see some light at the end of the tunnel as pending sales are really increasing. And we're seeing that really with our applications as well.
Yeah, we've also, and I know that we talked about this in the last show, the very first show of the 2025 year. We talked about the inventory levels and how inventory had quite a drop over the holidays. And then we kind of realized when it spiked back up that a lot of those homes were taken off of the market for the holidays and have now returned. So we did see a bit of that in our business as well, but we're also seeing a lot of new sellers coming to the table, which is kind of exciting in a way, because a lot of those buyers that have been wanting something, buyers that we have been working with, we've been having these conversations, they're like, oh, the lack of selection is kind of a bummer out there. So I'm here to say that the selection's coming back, y'all. So it's time to bring those approval letters to the table, and let's get rolling, because inventory levels have come up, and I have been seeing a lot more good properties that are priced well out there for my buyers. Matt, you watch inventory quite a bit. What say you?
I've definitely noticed that, things were definitely recovering, like you said, as far as coming back up in inventory levels from the pre-holidays. When we were going into the holiday season, people paused, said, let's not list unless we need to. Let's go ahead and pull our listings if we're not getting the traction that we need. And then we saw it come back. Now, the big question is, what's really going to happen? Who has been waiting, and we didn't even know that they were going to be in the marketplace of adding a listing. And are we going to just be hit, 2x on new listings coming into the new year? I would say right off the bat, I saw an acceleration that made me a little bit nervous, saying, whoa, this is definitely, we're seeing a lot more supply than demand. But it's been now tapering for the last 3 weeks. And the numbers that I've been pulling, the amount of inventory that's been going up has been steadily dropping in its rate of increase. So, I think it was like the first week we saw like almost 4%, and then it stayed there, and then it just slowly to 3%. And then this last week we only had a 1%. So in the last 7 days, only 1%. Now, what we have to look at, and this is something that you were talking about before, is, what are residents, people that live in Arizona, really like finding as a baseline for comfort in living expense, and that means they have to live somewhere. So it's either going to be in a home that they're paying a mortgage on, or something that they're renting. And, and if the economy really in Arizona wasn't that strong, and there wasn't a lot of confidence, and there weren't these ingredients there, we would see a drop across the board. People would be moving out of here. People would be staying where they're at. But that's not the case. What we're actually seeing now is it's the opposite. Rental inventory has just dropped. We have dropped like 20-something% since mid-December, and we're holding there. Now, what that's also telling us is now the less inventory we have when it comes to rentals, that means we're going to see an increase in rents. And we are now ultimately heading into our busy rental season as well.
Right.
So I think that conditioning is happening. I think people are just realizing, no matter what, like, hey, if I'm not going to buy and I'm going to go rent, well, guess what? I'm going to be renting at that same rate, that same expense level that I would be, ultimately paying if I had a mortgage. And I think that kind of really aligns. And I think a lot of people need to look at it and look at what inventory level is and how that kind of matches up to what their needs are, is finding a home. And there are choices, lots, good choices.
There absolutely are choices. So I just want to bring this map to everybody's attention. And for those of you that are listening on the podcast platform, so you can't see the map that I'm showing on the screen right now, it's basically a map of the greater Phoenix area, and it is a contract ratio heat map. And basically what that is showing you is where we're at in the market in all of these different areas. So you're seeing a lot of green on the map, which, guys, I haven't seen this much green on this map in a very long time. So green is balanced. There's a lot of areas around town that are in balanced markets. And how would you describe that, Matt? Basically, there's enough inventory to meet the demand out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I do believe that they're pulling that off of, homes that are currently active against those that are pending in each one of these little zones and or cities, how they broke it up.
Right.
So that's really going to tell us, what's really happening. Are there a lot of listings and there's really no movement? Or is there, a good amount of contract activity, pendings, under contract, that are showing us that there's still demand? And that's exactly what it's showing us. It's showing us that there's a balanced market. It's not a straight seller's market, and it's not a straight buyer's market.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of a good glimpse of where we're at in general right now. I mean, when you feel it, there's a little bit of volatility out there when you look at the stock market, when you look at just even everyone's emotions on how they feel about everyday living. It's one week we feel real good, one week we kind of don't. And, so I think that really kind of tells us that this is where we're at in balance. What I say is seeing that at the beginning of this year, especially coming off the volatility on the sky is falling in this previous election cycle, it definitely gives me hope, because if we were seeing a lot of blue in here, which would be saying that it's definitely cool, that
Cold,
means
yeah.
we're not seeing that activity. We are now seeing a lot more inventory than buyer activity. That's when you start to say, okay, where are we really headed? The fact is, we're seeing balance. All it's going to take is just a little bit of rate adjustment, kind of what Ryan was just alluding to at the beginning of this. If we see that trend, I definitely will see, I do anticipate we're going to see the same when it comes to, this heat map.
Agreed. So sounds to me like if you're a buyer out there and you want some selection and you want to do some negotiating, you might not want to wait until that happens.
Yes.
Yeah. 100%.
Something also, appreciate that, Matt. Something also interesting about this map that I just wanted to throw out there. So you see a couple of areas that are like a kind of sandy color or like a salmon pink color. And those areas are indicating hot, hotter, and frenzy. Okay. So interesting, Tolleson is that little sandish color right here, just under Goodyear. That's Tolleson. It's actually 85353 is the zip code there. And then you've got this kind of, it surprised me a little bit, to be honest, because I live in Ahwatukee. And this particular part of Ahwatukee has not always been in frenzy territory here. And that is 85045. So it's further west in Ahwatukee, kind of, closer to where the 202 wraps around. So that is a pretty hot area right now. Also, Chandler's always hot. I think we've been talking about this one for years, but 85224 is a hot spot in Chandler right now. And then this one, I guess it surprised me, but it didn't. Casa Grande is showing as hotter. And now they don't have a ton of properties on the market. So, but they have that ratio that Matt was talking about where they have a lot pending for what they have on the market. So that's why it's coming up on the map here as hotter. And that zip code is 85193. So I thought that was kind of interesting for those to be showing as hotspots.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I also think it shows kind of the general consumer confidence on Arizona as a whole. I remember back when things were really bad in end of 2005, 6, and all the way through to 2011, it only got colder as you went out.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So when you see things like this, it just means that people are like, hey, we want to buy, we have every intention of buying, and we need to buy. And this is where they're going. They're finding where the deals are. But there's also a lot of great stuff happening in Casa Grande.
That's what I was going to say.
I think that says a lot as well. What you said about Chandler has always been so centrally located as location. And when you look at these maps, it's interesting. You will see, if you were to look at this map, kind of give you a flash of every week for a period of time, you're going to see all these places kind of changing, going from warmer to cooler, and there is a cycle to it. And I think when you look at that cycle, it's also kind of confidence inspiring because it's very natural. It's just, hey, how do consumers respond? Just like any buyer, just like any seller, it's always hard to be the first one to put your toe in the water, never mind jumping in. Yeah. But once you see a bunch of people in the pool, guess what? There's a margarita machine next to it and everyone's ready to go. So it's one of those things, and you see it, and then all of a sudden people are like, oh, someone may be feeding the pool and people are jumping out, and so you're going to see this cycle happening. But I really do think at the end of the day, that shows that it's not just these weird anomalies. There's no consistency, things that wouldn't really kind of bring concern. No, I see a consistency.
Yeah. Something that might bring some concern to individuals out there, depending on the clickbaity titles that they're seeing, is this conversation about foreclosures.
Yeah.
So we've been having this conversation about foreclosures for probably as long as we've been doing this podcast.
Yes.
It comes up every couple of months, right? And we see these clickbait things out there. The sky is falling. The foreclosure rate is up. Well, when the foreclosure rate is up even just a little teensy bit from zero, I mean, yeah, I guess the percentage is there. You can wave that around. But when you really look at the numbers, is that super impactful to the market? No. And so this just came out February 4th. I love the Cromford report. So this is directly from them. Foreclosures are on the rise. Okay, wait. And no doubt some commentators will get excited about this and paint a bleak picture. However, the reality is that foreclosures are merely on their way back to normal from a long period of ultra low foreclosure rates. In fact, they still have far to go to reach normal levels. For example, in January, there were 422 notices of trustee sale in Maricopa County. Out of those, only 381 were for residential properties. So the other one was like commercial real estate or commercial land, or residential land. Yeah. So only 381, which, Matt, let's talk about the courthouse steps when you used to do that. Numbers were
that was an hourly rate. Yeah. You know what I mean? There was, that was an hourly rate of how many were going into foreclosure at our peak. And the bottom line is it's one of those things with foreclosures, like we've all said, it's a buzzword and everyone loves to jump on it, you know, and there was, and rightfully so, there was a lot of like PTSD from that whole period of time, still to this. And you see that. And I think it's almost like, you know, during the Depression, I know when we grew up in the 80s, you know, you had grandparents, great uncles that, you know, they were still very much part of that feeling. They had that PTSD from that period of time where they saved everything. And it was all this, like, we collect and not hoard, but save everything just in case. And I think a lot of people have that from foreclosure where they're like, we're going to wait for foreclosures. They're going to come back, or, you know, and I don't think we're ever going to see that. And the reason I say that is banks realize, they're the ones that really realize what happened during that time. And for a home to go into foreclosure, it really takes the bank to allow that to happen. And even of those ones that you see now going to foreclosure, if you look at the rate of those that actually open up at a market or below market bid, it's slim to none. And that's what really creates the deal. They wanted to get it off their books with foreclosures, so they'd give a deal. Now they don't do that. They set the opening bid higher than market. So of course no one bids on it and it reverts back to the bank. And now the bank gets to hold on to that wonderful real estate asset. So that's why I don't think we're going to see that. It's never really going to be a thing. And I think honestly, anyone hears or sees of a foreclosure deal being the primary catalyst for their attention to something should be a little skeptical.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting too, which is a bit different from my experience back in the day, like when all our business was short sales and, you know, bank foreclosures, like that was all that we're dealing with. So I have had three conversations in the last month with folks that are facing foreclosure. And a couple of things I have noticed. The first thing that I noticed is it's taking longer for foreclosures to be assigned. So like I have somebody who's 6 months behind right now. And the foreclosure Tiffany and Bosco has not put their stamp on it yet. It has not been assigned. So that's curious. Another thing is, and this happened in one of those conversations, they did the right thing. They contacted their bank, said, hey, I'm in trouble. What do you have to help me? And they were offered a few different solutions, one of which was a pre-approved short sale. Wow, huh, Matt? Wouldn't that have been a lot easier back in the day if we were having pre-approved short? Can you imagine?
That's new. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Ryan, are you seeing this any like increase at all on your end of things, either when it comes to the qualification process and or just general conversation?
Yeah, I think one of the big differences right now and why we're still so low on foreclosures is just we've seen so much home appreciation over the
Yeah.
past, few years. So there's a lot of equity there. And as soon as we have these buyers or some of our past clients that are like, hey, we're a little bit in trouble right now, lost our job, income's down, we really got to do something. And they're catching it early now. So what we're seeing is that, they're just trying to list their house because they don't want to lose out on the equity. So
Right.
the people that we really see that are maybe facing foreclosures are ones who bought their house more recently that, as rates went up, home prices did go up, but not maybe enough to really have enough equity in there to make a profit. So that's really what we're seeing. It's kind of the timing of when you bought is making the
Yeah.
big difference.
100% accurate. So in one of those conversations, it was a 2023 purchase.
Yes.
So it's
And
just, yeah.
they were unable to recover basically the fees, like the cost of
Yeah.
sale was
Yeah.
was where we were falling short. Maybe a teensy bit underneath the the price that they bought it at, but yeah, it's a lot of fees and things like that, cost of sale. So
100%. 100%. And that's no matter what, any market that's going to happen. People,
Right.
especially when you have these low percentage down options, 3%, 0% down, and all of a sudden someone gets sick, someone gets fired, someone, whatever it is, that happens.
it's
And
not a lot of room.
there's none. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and another statistic that I actually saw was, credit utilization, like credit card reporting. And I think that what they were finding is that a third of just American borrowers right now are maxed out on their credit card. And some are really starting to miss payments right now. So a few things that's going to have an impact on. One is spending.
Mhm.
Spending will probably go down, which will help drop inflation and hopefully lower interest rates. Because what we're hoping to see as rates come down, people could start tapping into some of that equity, which they haven't been able to because rates have gone so high. Take out a line of credit or do a cash out refinance, pay off
Yeah.
some of those credit cards to kind of get back in a better position. So that was kind of an interesting statistic, and I think that's why some of the foreclosure talk we're having is increased as well.
Totally
Interesting.
agree. I
Great
think
point.
that is a very interesting statistic. And now I know that you see statements. I don't know if you collect credit card statements when you are collecting for your, for your file for your people, but do you know, is the majority of this spending normal living expenses because they have to make ends meet and they've got to get groceries and that kind of thing, so they're charging it on the credit card, or is this buying the latest Coach purse kind of?
Yeah, I think it's just normal expenses and obviously just normal things that come up, like your
Yeah.
car breaking down or AC
Yeah.
going out, little things like that could just really throw things off
Yeah.
as costs have gone up. Wages have gone up too, but it really hasn't, kept up with how high inflation was.
Yeah.
So the fact that that's coming down is a great sign. And we just have seen an increase in discussions about, home equity lines of credit or second mortgages to really consolidate those credit cards. So we have seen that, but it's not like the 2005 and 2006 spending that we saw. It's more so just your normal spending that the costs have just kind of gone up.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So you're finding that you're having conversations with people who are thinking it makes more sense to have a much lower rate, extract a couple of bucks out of their property to pay off those high rate credit cards that are draining them. That's what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's still some great HELOC rates out there. Home equity line of credits. You could do like an adjustable line of credit that's maybe in the 5s or 6s right now. You can even do like a 30-year term that has a really low payment that's in the 7s right now. And that's going to be better than your 25, 30% credit card rates. So we are seeing a lot more consolidations right now. And that's one of the great things with rates coming down is there's going to be more opportunities to do that. And so that's what we're keeping an eye on.
Yeah. I'm seeing high interest rates on other things too, like motorcycles and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know your eyes just lit up, like, which client I'm talking about. It's a recent one. But anyway, that is all that I have for today. Anybody else have anything? I mean, that was a lot. That was a lot of value, guys. Thank you so much. Anything else that you think is important to add before we go?
I think we hit it.
Just, stay in tune. The next couple months, I think, is going to be really a lot going on. Obviously, as I mentioned, we're going to get some jobs reports, inflation numbers, Fed meetings, and if we do kind of see rates continuing to trend lower and getting in the low 6s for a conventional rate, which we're close to, I really think that's going to continue to spark demand, and we're already starting to see that right now, and gobble up all that inventory. So, like you were saying earlier, the inventory is a little higher right now, but spring buying season could really be hot with lower rates, and those get gobbled up pretty fast. So, something to be on the lookout for.
I totally agree. Once the buyers start catching on that there's more selection out there, I definitely think that's going to happen, coupled with hopefully a little bit of relief in rates.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, this wraps up our February episode. If you want to check out any of our previous episodes, go back 6 months, see what we said 6 months ago, see if it happened. You can check us out over on YouTube. It is at Team EvoAZ. That is our handle. Scroll down just a tad and you will see the Arizona Monthly Housing Market Update playlist right there at the top. It's actually a podcast now on YouTube. You can do that now. I was so excited. Yeah. So it is our main podcast on the YouTube channel. If you prefer that podcast style, but maybe you like Spotify or maybe you like Apple Podcasts, then over on your favorite podcast platform, do a quick search for Arizona Real Estate Radio. There you'll find us. Like, download, comment, do all the things, set your notification bell so that you never miss an episode. And we will see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys. See you later.